Hi, and welcome. My name is Heidi, and today we'll be talking about how to choose your SAT test date. You need two things in front of you. Number one is going to be your calendar, and number two is going to be the test dates that are available to you. So I have my calendar in front of me. Um, I would take a moment to go ahead and fill out my calendar for the next several months, just to make sure that I have all of my big events listed out on my calendar for easy reference as I go ahead choosing my test date. So I'm going to just go ahead and assume that everything on my calendar is up to date here. And then I'm going to go ahead and go to the College Board's website and take a look at the test dates that are available. So right here, I've opened the College Board website and I've gone to the SAT test dates and deadlines. And I can see that there's a list of dates and deadlines that are available for the school year that I'm currently in, which happens to be the 2021 to 2022 SAT dates. So it's currently January 2nd, so I can go ahead and look at any of the dates that appear after January 2nd of this year. The first is going to be March 12th, the second is going to be May 7th, and then the third here is going to be June 4th. So depending on what I'm looking for will depend on which one of these dates that I'm going to select. A couple of things that I want to keep in mind when selecting a test date is that I want to have between 8 to 10 weeks of time before the test date. I want to make sure that I have actionable time. I have actual time that I am available to dedicate to studying for this exam, and that I don't have any events at school that would disrupt my ability to focus on this exam. So, for example, June 4th, 2022. This is a nice time to take the exam. The weather is normally nice out. It gives me plenty of time to prepare. However, if I'm in public school in my area, for example, I know that finals start to begin that first week of June. So for me, if you're in my shoes, in my area, with knowledge that your finals are going to begin around that time, June is going to be one of the test dates that I want to eliminate from my schedule. That being said, if you're a student whose finals will finish or begin before or after that time, then you can certainly consider that test time as well. Okay, so let's also take into consideration our May 7th deadline here. So our May 7th test date, perhaps this is another one that I'm really interested in. I want to consider what happens before that particular test date. It is possible, maybe my birthday is actually May 8th. And so I know that on May 7th, I'll be so distracted by my birthday that I'm not going to be able to focus. Then that means I want to eliminate that test date as well. So those are just two examples of reasons to eliminate test dates, because you want to make sure that you're not setting yourself up for failure, right? We're trying to have the most successful experience possible. So we're going to select dates that are going to work with our schedule and be as effective as possible. I happen to live in New York State, so most of the winter is fairly cold and I stay indoors most of the time. So for me, I know that from now until about March, when the weather starts to pick up, I'm going to be stuck inside most of the time. I know pretty efficiently that I will have time to study for this exam. I know I don't have any winter or fall or spring sports coming up. I know that I don't have finals, and I know that I will be done with my exam before my spring break, which would be very distracting for me. So March 12th at this point is looking the most effective for me. I also want to keep in mind that I do want that 8 to 10 weeks of leeway. So if I'm a student that has never seen the exam before, I've never even taken a practice exam or a PSAT, I'm really hoping for that 10 weeks. I might even want to add 11 to 12 there, because I want to make sure that I have enough time to get up and running to study the most effectively. That being said, if I'm a student that's already taken the PSAT, I've taken a sample exam, I'm familiar with the format of the test, I might be comfortable studying only for 9 weeks. So again, keep in mind what is going to be the most efficient for you. So at this point, I've eliminated the other two test dates. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that that March 12th date works for me. So I'm going to pull open my calendar here. And again, I was using my calendar determining that those other dates weren't going to work for me. And I'm just going to go ahead and start to count. So if I register for the exam today, that means, and I begin preparing for the exam, that means that I'm really looking for the optimal 8 to 10 week period before the exam to study. So week number 1 is going to be this week right here, January 2nd. Week number 2 is going to be the 9th. Week 3 is the 16th, 4 and 5. So in the month of January, I have 5 solid weeks of study. And that's going to include all the way into the first week of February. So going to the next page here, that's going to give me week 6 here, the second week of February, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then you can see here the 10th week ends up being March 12th, which allows me adequate time to prepare for this exam. Again, depending on how comfortable I am, this could be enough time. Now, keep in mind, if you're one of those students that perhaps you have President's Day off and you know that you're going to have family in town, or perhaps you have an event coming up, you may want to add another week of study here. And so perhaps the March 12th exam won't work for you. But for my purposes, in our hypothetical here, I don't have any sports. School is pretty slow for me. It's cold where I am. And so I know that I'm going to be spending a lot of time indoors, and I'm happy to sit for the exam during this particular time. Compare that to my personal preference, which is to spend a lot of time outdoors in June when the flowers are blooming and it's beautiful out. That's not going to be an ideal time for someone like myself who has that particular preference. So keep all of these preferences in mind when you are selecting your date. A couple of other notes that I'll just make here is that, like I mentioned, if you are someone who has test anxiety, or perhaps you know that it takes you just a little bit longer to study than the average student, you may want to add additional dates. You may also be comfortable taking the exam significantly closer to the date in which you've chosen it because perhaps you've taken the exam already, perhaps you are really comfortable with standardized exams, or perhaps you know that you are a very efficient studier, and so you'll be able to complete all of the information in that more annotated period of time. There is never going to be a one size fits all for studying. You should really select what is going to be best for you and what is going to work for you. In one of the next modules, we'll talk about the effective ways to add study time to your day so that it doesn't disrupt your day-to-day schedule. So stay tuned for that. For now, I'm going to leave this here. If you do have any questions, please do feel free to pop them in the chat here. I'll also leave all of my other social media networking down below so that you can continue to ask questions and I can continue to help answer anything that you might have. With that, thank you so much. I hope to see you in another one of our videos here. And if you have any other topics that you'd like me to cover, please do feel free to drop those in the comment section below. Thanks.